Good day everyone and magandang umaga po sa aming gagalang-galang na Professor Mr. Ronaldo Altobal. But before we start our discussion, let me introduce myself and my groupmates. I am Shelon Abbas.
Hi, I am Giancarlo G. Abwed.
I am Beglier Ecuavera.
Hi, I am Jefferson Alcala.
I'm Angeline C. Alcantara.
I am Thea May Avila.
And now, we're here to discuss the overview of Renaissance, Medici family, and Petrarch. The Renaissance was a time of rebirth and expansion for religious interpretation, scientific discovery, exploration of new lands, and the flourishing of the arts. It was a period between the 14th and 16th centuries that developed the medieval era before it in favor of a new and brighter era that would draw inspiration from the Greek and the Roman traditions of antiquity. A great paradigm shift from the dark medieval times occurred. During the time of flourishing artistic achievement, Italy saw the rise of the powerful individuals and families. Italy was not a unified state during the times of Renaissance, and while the church had considerable power and wealth during this time, the Medici family, the owner of Europe's largest bank, became the most powerful dynasty in the region, gaining their power through banking. The Medici were such a rich and political dominating force. The Medicis are one of the most influential and controversial families in the history of the world. They used the power of their wealth to rise above all of other upper-class families of Florence to dominate the political and cultural scene. The Medicis were instrumental in the rise of the Italian Renaissance and were deeply involved in shaping European culture and politics for 300 years. But after so many years of dominance, they fell as quickly as it rose. In the 14th century, the Medicis rose from relative obscurity to become the most powerful and wealthiest family in all of Italy and most of Europe. They were an Italian banking family, political dynasty, and royal house that became dominant in the early 15th century. Francesco Petrarch was a poet and one of the founder of Renaissance humanism. Renaissance humanism was a movement that blossomed out the Dark Ages. Francesco loved reading and writing and wanted to spend all of his time studying literature, which means reading classical books. Francesco spent many years writing love poems. One of these is his love poem for Laura, and this poem later became very famous and other poets mimic his style. On April 8, 1341, he became Rome's poet laureate and was crowned on Capitoline Hill. A poet laureate is someone appointed by the government to compose poems for special events and occasions. Even in the modern days, to become a poet laureate is one of poets' highest honor. Francesco was never married but fathered two children, a son Giovanni and a daughter Francesca. For many years afterward, Petrarch's ideas influenced other writers and philosophers and helped fuel the flowering ideas that took off during the Italian Renaissance. Sa inyong palagay, what is Renaissance? Simula junior high school pa lamang tayo ay itinuro na kung ano ang Renaissance. At pag sinabing Renaissance, ang unang pumapasok sa isip natin ay rebirth at kung sa Tagalog ay muling pagsilang. At ilan sa mga greatest thinkers, authors, statements, scientists, and artists in our human history ay naririto sa era na ito. The Renaissance was the time period of creativity and change in Europe, and during the 1300s and 1600s, which there were changes in many areas such as political, economical, and social, and cultural. At ang pinakamahalaga pagbabago na naganap ay kung paano nakita ng tao ang sarili nila at kung paano nila nakita ang mundo. Then, kaya nila tinawag na ang Renaissance ay muling pagsilang, muling pagkabuhay, o sa Ingles ay rebirth. Dahil may mga disorders and disasters na nangyari noong medieval period. Ang Renaissance ay nagsimula sa Italy in the midst of 1300s and it spread north throughout the rest of Europe. Naganap sa Italy ang Renaissance dahil itinuturing ng mga Italiano na sa dugo at wika ay sila ang may kaugnayan sa mga Romano kaysa ibang bansa sa Europe. At dahil sa pananaw na ito ay muling nabigyan sigla ang kanilang pagnanasang mapanumbalik ang tagumpay ng kanilang klasikal ng sinaunang Roma. Ang mga arkitektural na bagay na natitira pa sa Italy, tapos yung mga antik na statwa, mga lumang barya, ang nagpapaalala sa mga Italians ng naging tagumpay ng Roman Empire noon.
Continuation, while the spirit of the Renaissance ultimately took many forms, it was expressed earliest by the intellectual movement called humanism. Humanism began to gain momentum and achieve fruition first in Italy. Among its many principles, humanism promoted the idea that man was the center of his own universe, and people should embrace human achievements in education, classical arts, literature, and science. It also stated that the church shouldn't rule certain matters, and it rediscovered ancient items, thoughts, and beliefs. From Italy, the new human spirit in the Renaissance it engendered spread north to all parts of Europe, aided by the invention of printing, which allowed literacy and the availability of classic texts to grow explosively. In 1450, the invention of the Gutenberg printing press allowed for improved communication throughout Europe and for ideas to spread more quickly. As a result of this advance in communication, little-known texts from early humanist authors, such as those by Francesco Petrarch and Giovanni Boccaccio, which promoted the renewal of traditional Greek and Roman culture and values, were printed and distributed to the masses. Humanist scholars hoped to use their wisdom to increase their understanding of their own times, and the fall of Constantinople in 1453 provided humanism with a major boost for many Eastern scholars fled to Italy, bringing important books and manuscripts in a tradition of Greek scholarship. It was in art that the spirit of the Renaissance achieved its sharpest formulation. Art came to be seen as a branch of knowledge, valuable in its own right and capable of providing man with images of God and his creations as well as with insights into man's position in the universe. The Renaissance was a golden age in the arts and architecture as there were numerous achievements of works of art that are still very famous today. One of the outstanding artists in the hands of man is Leonardo da Vinci, who believes that art was even a science, a means of exploring nature and record of discoveries. Art was to be based on observation of the visible world and practiced according to mathematical principles of balance, harmony, and perspective, which were developed at this time. In the works of painters such as Masaccio, the brothers Pietro and Ambrogio, Lorenzetti, Raphael, and Titian, sculptors such as Giovanni Pisano, Donatello, and Michelangelo, and architects such as Leon Battista Alberti and Andrea Palladio, believed that the dignity of man found expression in the arts. And as you may notice in the paintings of the Renaissance, artists used a natural shape, linear perspective, and deep perception. The Renaissance inspired new ideas, cultures, religions, and ways to live by, and plays a very important role because it brought Europe out of the abyss that it was in. It helped people change the way they saw themselves, others, and their world. It also helped many people express their uniqueness and creativity by art, science, writing, and technology. Other than that, arts and writings weren't the only thing that we still use today. There are mathematical advances and discoveries that are still applied presently. Other things like the printing press that I have mentioned earlier, maps, compasses, medicines, and the scientific method still play an important role in our daily life. Additionally, many scholars believe advances in international finance and trade impacted culture in Europe and set the stage for the Renaissance.
We will talk about Medici family. The Medici family, also known as the House of Medici, was a wealthy, powerful, and influential family that lived and operated in the city of Florence, Italy. During the Renaissance in the 13th century, the family emigrated to Florence in the 12th century, where they began their rise to power through banking. This rise to power through wealth and connection instead of by family, lineage, or military accolades allowed them to build influence by controlling others in power. As they rose in wealth and influence, their control over Florence grew as well. The people of Florence received the Medicis well for their benevolence and support of the lower classes. The Medici family rose to power through their connection to the papacy. The Medici Bank became the Bank of the Papacy, and family members eventually rose to the papacy themselves. The Medici family tree is spread throughout all of Europe. It all started with Cosimo de' Medici, later known as Cosimo the Elder. Cosimo de' Medici was an Italian banker as well as a politician. He was one among the founding members of the Medici family, which ruled Florence during Italian Renaissance. His power were not absolute despite his proposal, were resisted by his council at many times, and this went on throughout his life. People always view of him as the first among the equals and never thought of him as an autocrat. All his power came from his wealth that he earned as a banker. He was always known for his work on arts and architecture along with culture during the period of Renaissance, and he spent majority of fortunate of his life to enrich the civil life of Florence. The Medicis produced four popes. Pope Leo X was not only the head of the Christian Church but also the temporal ruler of the Papal State and head of the Medici family, ruled the Florentine Republic. Pope Clement VII. He sponsored the artistic works of Cellini, Raphael, and Michelangelo, including the competition of the Sistine Chapel. Pope Pius IV led the Roman Catholic Church from 1559 to 1565. His greatest achievement as Pope was to conclude the work of the Council of Trent. Pope Leo XI, who served as Florence's ambassador to the Pope Bishop of Pistoia, Archbishop of Florence, and finally the Cardinal. The last Medici ruler died without a male heir in 1737, ending the family dynasty after almost 3 centuries.
Everywhere we go in Florence, we can see their family insignia and the art that they brought in the tremendous city. Even until today, we can still see the Medici family's legacy in buildings, museums, and artworks scattered throughout the city of Florence. Some examples of that are the Palazzo Medici Riccardi, that was the first Medici palace in Florence, and the home of Cosimo the Elder and Lorenzo the Magnificent, as well as the Uffizi Gallery, which was originally constructed as an office building for Cosimo I de' Medici. This museum still holds many of the Medici family's paintings. Since the Medici family had an incredible amount of influence in the history of Florence, they also did much to influence the Renaissance by enabling great artists, humanists, and writers to produce their works. The family members also commissioned some of the most well-known Renaissance artists of all time, including Tuscan-born artists like Michelangelo, Donatello, Botticelli, and Brunelleschi. An example of that is the Basilica of San Lorenzo, wherein they commissioned the leading Renaissance architect Filippo Brunelleschi to design it. Moreover, the family brought stability and peace to the city of Florence. Cosimo the Elder, who believed that conflict can hamper trade, negotiated to put an end to several wars in Lombardy. This helped establish a mutual territory agreement between the states. His successor, Lorenzo de' Medici, worked hard to preserve the Treaty of Lodi, which Florence, Milan, and Naples signed in order to maintain their peace. Their peaceful rule also did much to promote the Renaissance in the city because they also have relations with the other city-states. The Medici was also instrumental in the growing interest in Greek culture and history. Truly, the Medici family made a great impact in the Renaissance period. Since the Medici were well recognized for supporting the arts, their financial support to the humanities and arts contributed to Florence during the Renaissance by making it a flourishing cultural center. Not only that, because while the Medici used their abilities to advance their own power and prominence, they also used their influence to better the lives of those under their control by supporting artistic activities and defending Florence from foreign domination.
Francesco Petrarca was born on July 20, 1304 at Arezzo, Italy, while his family lived in the village of Incisa. Francesco died before his birthday, which is July 19, 1374. He also became a model of lyrical poetry. Francesco Petrarch studied law at the University of Montpellier, year 1316 to 1320. He studied law because his father wanted him to be a lawyer. Just because his father's profession is a lawyer, that's why he wanted him and his brother to study law. But Francesco considered studying law for 7 years as a waste of time because he is primarily interested in writing and Latin literature. He also called the first jurist because Francesco wants to travel for pleasure.
Si Petrarch ay tinaguri ang Father of Humanism dahil sa mga personal na sinulat at impluensya niya sa philosophical attitude at sa discovery ng classical text. Ano nga bang naging gampanin ni Petrarch sa Renaissance? Noong ika-14 na siglo, ang makatang Italiano na si Petrarch ay nagbigay inspirasyon sa ilan sa mga pangunahing prinsipyo ng Renaissance. Ang kapansin-pansin ay ang kanyang pagkahumaling sa mga klasikal na sulatin ng mga sinaunang Greece at Roma. Ang malalim na pagpapahalaga ni Petrarch sa klasikal na kaalaman, ang kanyang diin sa rasyonalismo ng tao at kritikal na pag-iisip, at ang kanyang hilig na hamunin ang medieval na mga tradisyon ng simbahang Katoliko ay nagtakda ng mga pundasyon para sa kilusan ng humanismo, isang filosofiya na nangingibabaw sa pag-iisip ng Renaissance. At noong 1341, si Petrarch ay naging isang Italian celebrity nang siya ay makoronahan bilang Poet Laureate o opisyal na makata ng Estado ng Roma. Si Petrarch ang unang taong nakatanggap ng titulong ito mula noong Imperyo ng Roma.